So this is our dining room, and it's one of my favorite rooms in the house because it's like so medieval. But these curtains came with the house, and they just gotta go. They just gotta go. They might be thinking they look pretty cool. They're purple, they kind of have moon shapes on them, but they're so moldy. And I have respiratory issues, so my housemate Lynette is gonna help me take them down. Hello! So now that the old rails and old curtains are out of here, I can start patching all of the old holes that are left over. So we're not going to put the rails in the same holes. We're going to start new holes. We don't want sloppy second holes over here. Oh God. So it's going to require patching and then eventually painting. I was smart enough to get color match paint to our walls, so I got that covered. Guys, this is an old house. It doesn't look pretty up there, but we're gonna make it look pretty.
So the ceiling was falling down at one point and tradies came in and fixed it, but it looks like shit. So I'm gonna try and cover up their bad plastering job across the corners at least. But the ceiling cannot be helped. Who calls that workmanship? What is that?
I call that apprenticeship.
Now I'm using this quick drying filler. It says that you can paint it in 30 minutes, so hopefully it's right. And here's my scrapey tool. Hello, I can see you. So filled in the gaps of the old holes, and while I wait for that to dry and set so I can sand and paint it, I'm gonna go along the cornice, which is white, and just paint that back in because there's a lot of crap on there. And it's crap that you can't clean back to a good white. So sometimes just a refresh of paint, just one coat will make it look good again. So while I wait for everything to dry, I've got some deliveries from IKEA that have been sitting here for over a month at least. In here we have the curtains. I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but these are the curtains that we currently have in our living room. I ordered 2, I have another pair in the other room. So that's 3 sets of those. I grabbed some more curtain rail thingies, holders, whatever you call them. I already had some left over from a previous project, so there's 2 sets there, and then a 3rd set, which we took off the wall from some old curtains. Sometimes when I'm using a knife, I think about what would happen if I accidentally cut myself, and then I think about how cool it is that we're all like Wolverine, except just really, really slow. We have 1 rail. I've got 2 aside from previous projects that we're going to reuse. And then we have our curtain ends, which are kind of like medieval iron sort of looking things. Then I went ahead and grabbed my color match paint to the lounge walls and struggled to open it. I did it. I'm doing it. And then proceeded to start painting over all the shoddy work from those tradespeople that came in and left plaster everywhere. It doesn't look great, but it looks better than it was, that's for sure. Yes, my very professional way of checking if the paint is still wet. Ah, it is dry. It's time to make some holes. Let's see if we can touch some wood. Next up, I pre-drilled all the holes for the curtain brackets, and then Neth took over when my back gave out. And then we double teamed to get all the brackets up. All right, the last bracket is going in. It would be if I found a screw. It worked. Anyway, I moved on to these little hook things and adding the padding to grip the bar, I think that's what it does. Then we attached them to the brackets, and when we put the curtains in, they need to be forward, but then once the rail is in, we can actually push it back and it'll be low profile again. So we have the brackets up, we have the hooks to receive the rails up, and now we have to open the curtains and put them on the rails. Lynette is currently off the rails, and we're not going to do that. Next up, we threaded the curtains on patterned one first, then we did a shear on the same pole, and then sandwiched it with another patterned one. And I made a mistake here, but I'll explain it to you in just a second. First, you must bask in the glory that is this end cap. It is most exquisite. The next step involved me actually putting the curtain rail up, and I began zhuzhing the curtains, and this is when I realized I made a mistake. the white sheer curtain wasn't meant to be threaded through the strings on the back. It was meant to be going through the tube of the curtain. And now I'm painstakingly and stubbornly undoing the end cap instead of taking the whole rail back down. Because, I don't know, I want to make more work for myself while tricking myself into thinking I'm making less work for myself. But I correct it here. There you go. And then you get a nice, like, gathered bunch look. And so you have a pleated look, a bunching look, and then a pleated look again with the end curtains. It'll all make sense soon. So annoying. Lynette helped me get some curtains up, and while he was off screen assembling the next one, I started adjusting how I want things to look and getting others to tell me if things were even or not. The main thing was to sort of make it meet up with that vent for, I don't know why there are vents on these old houses, maybe because they used to have fireplaces and they don't want to asphyxiate from smoke. I really don't understand. This got dark. Anyway, curtains looking nice, and we're gonna add the last one. Okay, so the camera battery died, and while that was charging, I did some things behind the scenes. I've steamed all the curtains so they're nice and flat. And then I started playing around with hanging some vines from them and in the area. So I'm gonna try and mess with that for a little bit, but yeah, that's where we're up to so far. This is one of Lynette's axes, and I thought, what if I just wrap a vine around it? Because underneath here is a command hook, which I've covered with a blue tacked leaf, just kind of tucked it in there. So I don't know, I think that works well. I'm gonna just play with the vines a bit more. There's absolutely no method here other than getting a vine across the top of the curtains and trying to cover the shoddy plaster work with vines coming across the ceiling. That's pretty much it.
Holy shit. Damn, girl! This changes the whole vibe. Oh, of course you're freaking recording. Hi! Dude, what the fuck? Holy shit. Oh, it makes it so much more cozier.
And of course, no whimsical room is complete without fairy lights. I got these from Bunnings. These hang down like a curtain, which is exactly what I need. And they link together with other sets. I'm also going to use some of these adhesive hook thingies to help support the lights on the ceiling. Here I'm detangling my glowy noodles. And one thing I always do before I hang lights up is I check that they actually work. Had a little scare here, but we're all good. And now commences the montage of assembling the lights. This took hours, but what I'm going to do is drag them across this center portion, and then from the center we're going to bring them out along the vines across the ceiling, and then some of them are going to get tucked behind the curtain, which you'll see me do later. But for now, let the time lapse commence. Packet of lights, so I decided to create a similar effect above our TV area, but we didn't get up to doing vines on this one. It's another day, and I decided to finally hang these pictures that have been sitting there for months, waiting to be mounted upon the wall. I seem to have become Laszlo Cravensworth. There's lots of things going on that I need to explain. We're ignoring that that light is off center. We're going to try to recenter the room by putting things over that light. The second thing that I need to address is that one picture's string is looser than the other. So even though I've measured from the top to there, this one looks higher than that one. So I'm going to try to take this off the hook, tighten its string with some pliers, and then try to rehang it, and hopefully that'll get it back to the right height. Oh, it's so annoying. They're just out. And also trying to hang them straight. So now comes the part where I take each picture down and painstakingly fix the wiring on the back. You can see here that the wire is fraying and that the knot is not done properly, so I meticulously undid the whole thing and rewired it using instructions from the internet, but you won't see any of that because my hands are about to be in the way the whole time. But trust me, I tightened that thing up and it's all good. And also someone cracked the frame when they put the screw in. Ah! This next phase I am calling the horror fest that is trying to make pictures look straight in a wonky house. Our house is slowly sinking, and as a result, everything is slightly askew, and I have slight OCD tendencies, so this drove me mad. They are still not the same height. I don't know what's wrong. I think the frame on one of them is misshapen because it looks like it's bowing at the top, which means that it looks the wrong the wrong sizes. I don't want to spend all night fussing with this, but I also cannot stand it when pictures are wonky or not level, and it's gonna drive me insane. So I grabbed some blue tack and I gave in, and I just tried to make them as level as possible. I don't normally say good enough, but this was good enough. The bottom of this gap is smaller and that's bigger, but that's perfectly level. Nothing looks level in this house. Next up, I have this macrame on like some driftwood, and you know, it's not very medieval, but it's all I have. But I think it's gonna be perfect to hide the light. But before I do that, I need to create a structure around this. What I'm gonna do is probably, once I've hung this thing up and made the structure for it, I'll probably just like cover the mistakes or the wonkiness with the garlands that just kind of hide it, because it is driving me insane. Have this hoop, and I'm hoping that I can create a structure over here to support this guy. So I'm just gonna do what I do and start MacGyvering. And MacGyver I did. I literally attached 2 pieces of blue tack to the end of the wire, a string helping support the structure attached to a nail. It was all very jank, and you're about to see my disbelief at what the heck am I doing. But it worked. Now, because I'm short, I used a level to hang this up, and then I began finessing. Okay, I've developed a fun little technique to spread these out, and all I'm doing is just looping them over the wire. Sorry, it's hard to do with one hand. Like that. And then pushing them into place, just sort of tightening them. And I think it's a lot better because it spreads it out evenly. So I'm going to do that all the way around where the gaps need to be filled. Here I am applying the aforementioned garland to hide all the mistakes and shame. I think it kind of worked. It kind of distracts from what's going on. But look how it turned out. I'm so proud of this. You wouldn't even know that there was a wonky light like skewed to the right-hand side if you didn't know it was there. It just kind of became a nice little light feature. And now for the next part of the project. I'm going to take our old couches and I'm going to give them a little bit of a makeover. I'm going to paint some murals on these. When you walk into the room, you can see the back of this chair specifically, so I kind of want to make it look pretty. And you've heard of shaving your crotch, but have you heard of shaving your couch? I had to make a smooth paintable surface, and the best way to do it was to trim off all the threads that have been pulled from cats scratching it over the years. So we grabbed my pet trimmer. I literally used this to shave my cat's butts, so I'm shaving the couch with it. Next up, I grabbed a green permanent marker and I started to sketch out a rough outline of sort of like an ivy vine, sort of leafy design, just to see how I felt about it. I cannot tell you how weird it feels to sit here and draw on the furniture. I feel like a parent is going to come in and scold me. I feel like I'm not allowed to do this. Like, I feel like I'm going to be in trouble. But alas, I am an adult and I had permission from my housemates to do this. And so I just went about painting. Didn't have a plan. I just let my inner child get creative. It was so fun and so freeing. So can recommend. Draw on your couches. Don't ask your parents. Just do it. Don't do that for legal reasons. Now in the meantime, we're going to work on this shelf that sits behind our couch. It needs to be lowered and stained to match the rest of our furniture. So Lynette kindly helped me by using the power tools that I'm scared to use. Apparently I didn't film while we were assembling it, but once we got it assembled, I took this wood stain and I went over all of it and darkened it up, and it really just brought out all the wood grain and looked amazing. I originally built this shelf for a completely different purpose years ago, so it was really cool to see it get a new lease of life. The next day I grabbed some Danish oil and I proceeded to varnish the entire thing. Our purpose for using this is to rest drinks and items on it behind the couch when we can't reach a table, so I wanted to make sure that it was going to withstand that. Also, this stuff stinks. I did about 2 coats in between letting each layer dry. Then I added these embellishments. These were actually silver colored metal hinges that I painted black and spray painted with a clear coat. Turned out good, I think. We also finally hung up Lynette's portrait and put a hanging plant next to it, and then it was time to get back to painting the couch. I'm just gonna let you watch this and I'll chime back in later. Absolutely love how this area turned out. I think it is the most cozy little place in the entire house. We've had guests over, we've had a party here, and everyone has commented on what a nice vibe it is in here, and I have to agree. It just genuinely feels like we live in some sort of fae land. My favorite things that I've done in here, I absolutely love how the vines up into the ceiling worked out with the fairy lights in them. I love all of the thrifted items, including some of the Facebook Market finds with the really ornate carved chairs and table. I love the DIY projects that we've done in here, including the little shelf behind the couch to rest drinks and things like that when you can't reach a table. I think it just really ties in with the rest of the room and the rest of the furniture. I really love how I've done this macrame lamp cover thing to make the room look more symmetrical. I also am obsessed with how we were able to incorporate Lynette's LARP gear. So we've got swords and shields and axes and things around the room, which gives it that sort of dungeon feel that we were going for. The fireplace just really makes sense now in here. We didn't even know that this fireplace worked. It took us 6 years of living here until the landlord finally sent someone out to test it and found out that it actually works. So we've been absolutely soaking up the fireplace vibes. It's just so cozy in here. The couches as well, I haven't finished painting those. I'd like to continue to mural the entire sides and fronts and backs of all of them. I love the throne in here. I love all the books. I love all the D&D references. I just think it is exactly who we are as a household. However, we have been given our 60 days notice to vacate as of a few days ago because the landlord wants to sell the house, and that's fine. But I just finished all this beautiful work. So, if you want to watch more projects of me transforming spaces, there will be a new home eventually that I will have to transform, and we'll get to do all this all over again. Now, before you get to see the final shots, let's look at the photos from when we first moved in. That's the dining room. This is the fireplace. We also have our TV area, our little lounge, and a view from out the lounge into the sort of patio area. So with that in mind, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and here are the final shots.